real problem in the question posed as to, well, what created God? Or how did God create himself? Is that we're imagining God in some sense in the already created. For instance, our universe. And this universe has the feature of time and causality. But that is just this universe. Now, if this universe is an island unto itself, then you have an imponderable. How did God create himself? But if these dimensions are not applicable to the, if you like, setting or the environment in which the universe is. In other words, if the universe is, in terms of the universe, a consequence of something beyond it, outside of it. If I speak in this universe dimensions, we're saying prior to it. That which is prior to the existence of the universe, the existence of God, is not in terms of the dimensions of this universe. This particular spectrum of dimensions, time, space, and so forth. So it may simply not be a meaningful question to ask because you're insisting that God is of the nature of what he's created. And, I can't understand the people and the sophistication of politics, economics, and philosophy simply by looking at the school system. Because the school system is designed for young children. It's not the same as a university. I'd have to look at the university to understand the political, economic, and scientific sort of structure of the society I'm looking at. The pot of the potter does not give you the entire sophistication of the potter himself. He is far more than that which is making at the minute. To be able to do it, of course, he needs to be far more than. The pot can't make another pot. The child can't teach another child to be an adult. It needs an adult to teach the child. So we can't understand the fullness of society just by talking to children, because they don't know what dad does when he goes to work, for instance. Don't understand why, how things are being produced and so forth, because they're things he's not touched on yet. They're outside of his domain. And you're asking for an explanation of the things that are outside of your domain of conceptual understanding, because you're a child. We all are. It may just simply not be meaningful to ask, how did God create himself? Perhaps, for instance, we come from, in some sense, an eternal to a transitory. We can't then understand how the transitory can exist until we understand the eternal. which we're not in and we're not au fait with yet. But it is interesting on a very elementary level that what you believe, increasingly you put a volition to and a creativity. You start making it and doing it and bringing it into existence. It's an extraordinary facility. It is what life is. We are creative. And by extrapolation, by extension, we can visualize perfect creator, ideally caring for us, in harmony with us, with our best interest at heart. And that's our ideal. And it's, if we push towards anything else, we push towards something that's less than the ideal and possible annihilation, self-annihilation, which is hardly a rational thing for us to be doing. If it is rational, then our non-existence comes about quite quickly. And it becomes of no interest to us, because we are not. The whole thing evaporates. In some sense, you see, there's a theory that life is of necessity. It cannot not come about. It cannot not be. Which, of course, would be an extremely wise creation to make, then, if you want life to be. Who would want life to be, or what? Well, life itself. And God is our understanding of the epitome of life that might be wanting this. It's not that we have an explanation. We just have a conceptual way of visualizing it that can in itself be extremely beneficial. Of course, if we get it wrong, it could be destructive. And some conceptions of God seem to be very wrong. Surprisingly, the legalistic one has turned out that way. That far from it ensuring life, it seems to give such a rigor mortis as to be death itself. That creativity cannot flourish in a legalistic preset pattern. We need actually some level of contradiction, some level of variability, some level of uncertainty. We actually need good and evil. Evil has its role in suggesting possible alternatives and, well, yes, reacting against such, where such is inferior to what we already have. Evil's only understood to be evil whilst it's seen to be destructive. If it can be used it's a bit like a byproduct, it's just waste, you chuck it on the dump. And that's an aggro because it spoils the environment in some way. But then suddenly someone comes along and says, hey, this has a good use. And suddenly it starts to get a non-zero market price. And they're selling the stuff instead of trying to dump it. And you think, oh, that's rather good, isn't it? Wow. We found a use for it. Like fluoride, for instance. Instead of dumping this toxic waste, we can, yes, well. You know where I'm going, don't you? It's a bit like chlorinating your water, isn't it? I mean, it's a good idea if you want to kill the bugs. Aren't we also biological matter, though? I mean, what does chlorine bleach do to us? Oh, I don't know, we seem to survive it all right. Perhaps it accounts for one or two of the illnesses we can get. Of course, the reply comes back, yes, but nothing like the illnesses you can get without it, mate. And so the debate goes on. Thank you, Heavenly Father. Our ideal, you see, is harmonious autonomy. We are creators and we want to create things that don't upset other people's creativity. And that's what ethics is about. Suddenly you don't do things that trample on other people. And the whole notion of cooperation as opposed to competition, which there are winners and losers, and the losers are dead. This doesn't give us access to the benefits of cooperative behaviour, which is potentially far, far beyond the benefits of individual behaviour. In fact, it's a miracle, the Adam Smith thing, that individual behaviour gives us a standard of living at all, and we don't just wipe each other out. That despite individual motivation, self-interest, some minimal standard of, in fact, quite sophisticated standard of living can still be achieved. That's a miracle in itself. And a person like Adam Smith is an example of someone who really appreciates this. That even the making of a pin had how many processes by how many different people and specialisms and including its marketing and everything else, and just thinking, this is just staggering. And it seems to be a self-interest model that nonetheless results in some cooperative behaviour and production. But we get the impression it's pretty minimal compared to what people who are self-motivated to be cooperative, people who value joint activity and can see that jointly determining some goal can allow goals that are just staggering compared to what individualism can pull off. Well, I didn't expect to come on to some thesis of attacking narrow individualism, but in some sense, spirituality has always been that, hasn't it? It's been that we need to transform from our competitive behaviour to a loving oneness behaviour, a harmony that allows us to work together to achieve fantastic things with our joint effort, as opposed to the incredible squandering of effort that results from competition. You've got a petrol station near town, so I open mine just that bit nearer town and mop up all the trade that you would have had, and your capital stock is just wasted. You bulldoze it and you think, oh, that's a shame. Well, I couldn't beat the competition, he moved there, you see, but it's all right, I'm going to set up a garage that's even nearer the town centre. I think I can do it that way. What a magnificent waste of resources that's going on all the time. And this is the subject of market failure, of course, and being an economist, I'm rather intrigued by that, to say the least. And market failure is endemic in in the market in the whole concept of the market, indeed. It's a wonderful system compared to nothing. It's an appalling tragedy compared to what might be the case of what we can achieve without the waste. In other words, the market needs so much repair and transformation that I don't think you'll really call it a market when we've finished. However, the fear is, the great concern is that we lose the autonomy of individuality that adds such variety, that blesses invention and innovation. It prevents innovation in that, it's not been corporately embraced because it's not perceived as in the interest of those that could embrace it most easily if they so chose. So there are these structural, sociological, economic, political problems that we haven't mastered yet, and our, quotes, science of such subjects is our hope that we move in the right direction. But spirituality, religion and so on, also has something to offer us in this regard. And it's been offering its approach for a long, long time. It's very experienced in this field. I mean, quite simply, we find that, a workforce that fellowship with each other and care for each other can be n times more productive than one that is full of bitterness and revenge. And you don't need any genius to tell you that, do you? Thank you, Dad.